Welcome to Fear and Greed. The week ahead, I'm Sean Aylmer, and as always, I'm joined by economist Stephen Koukoulas. You'll find him at thekouk.com, THEKOUK, thekouk.com, and on X using the handle thekouk. Stephen, good morning.
Good morning. I'm still recovering from that AFL Grand Final. What a game.
It was a great game.
Yeah, no Melbourne teams, but it was still a good event.
Yes, you're a Melbourne man nowadays. Now tell me, Last week, cracking week for the economy. We saw the Reserve Bank come out and tell us what they thought, and then we had those inflation numbers, which were kind of, it's easy to just sort of say, look, don't worry about it, the headline inflation rate, but the numbers weren't too bad, really.
They were quite good. So starting with the RBA, now clearly they don't want to cut rates. Now they happen to sort of avoid the discussion of rate hikes. I think the governor was asked explicitly whether the board meeting earlier that day on Tuesday last week considered rate hikes, and she's effectively said no. We were just sort of looking at the economy, trying to update our risk profile. They didn't embrace rate cuts either. So it was a genuine neutral assessment of where they are on monetary policy. Now, that was all fine and dandy. It went sort of pretty much through to the key, but there was no real surprises there for us economists. But over the next day, we saw the inflation numbers. Now, they were for the month of August, and we know the monthly figures are not comprehensive, they're volatile, and all these other caveats that are there. And there's an even bigger caveat with these ones in that they included the effects of that electricity subsidy. And that trimmed about 0.5 percentage points off the monthly CPI. About 17% the electricity prices fell because of about $75 subsidy from the Commonwealth and a few other subsidies from state governments. But nonetheless, we still saw headline inflation back to the target, 2.7% annual terms. The trimmed mean, which of course the RBA loves to go on about, did decelerate to 3.4% from 3.8%, and the momentum seems to be, we're on track to get that below 3 in the not too distant future.
Yeah, I mean, the momentum is certainly with those hoping for a rate cut, if not late this year, certainly early next year.
Oh, indeed, and that's where the market's settled. There was a bit of volatility with the governor's talk, with global events, and of course with the inflation data itself. But as we sort of kick off this week, there's still a high probability, around about 75% chance, give or take, of a rate cut before Christmas in Australia. So that's a pretty decent probability for the December meeting rather than the November meeting of the RBA board. And when we get into 2025, there's about roughly 125 points of rate cuts from today priced into the end of 2025. So taking the cash rate to the low threes on the back of weak growth and, as we mentioned, that inflation rate finally getting back to the target range.
Let's hope so. Now, I like this week. There's a week every month in the world of Bureau Statistics and Economics where you get all these partial indicators, building, approvals, retail, trade, and this is the week, Stephen.
It is the week. And yes, they're not the sort of slam dunk economic indicators that are going to change anyone's view, including at the Reserve Bank, but they are, as you said, the building blocks into where the economy is going in different segments of the economy. So to retail trade first, we had a pretty disappointing result in July. The figures were dead flat, and that's when the income tax payments came through. So back at the time, people were looking for a bit of an increase. This time around, maybe because people didn't get paid on the 1st of July, they got paid later in the month, according to their paydays, and then they received their tax cuts then. We're looking for a modest increase, around about 0.5% in retail spending, which is okay in the scheme of things. Building approvals, that one that makes me sort of groan every month that we need a lot of new building to sort of house the population growth, to meet the demand for house prices, rental market and the like. We had a decent jump last month. If we can get 2 in a row, that would be, a baby step towards improving the property market and the supply side of the economy. Remember, these are approvals. They aren't completed dwellings. We know that it takes, a good year, maybe 2, to turn a piece of dirt into a dwelling that someone can live in.
Let's just quickly talk about trade. What do we expect on that side?
International trade, but probably just another tiny step back in the trade surplus. About a year ago, we were running monthly goods trade surpluses around about $15 billion or thereabouts. We were exporting our pants off, and the commodity price cycle was very high, volumes were high, and we were getting $15 billion a month of a surplus. Now, the last few months it's dropped to about $5 or $6 billion. Commodity prices are down, the iron ore price is down, and we know, again, from last week's data on China that the economy there is weak, and so there's probably a pullback in export volumes, certainly a pullback in export prices. So the trade surplus is probably going to just shrink another little bit more when we get those international numbers.
And we've got the end of the month, of course. House prices. What's going to happen?
Yeah, well, we know from the high-frequency CoreLogic numbers, they publish data every day, we're probably going to get a 0.5% increase in nationwide prices. But be warned, there's a massive divergence from city to city. Perth is still absolutely on fire, plus 25% in annual terms. So Perth is really rocketing along. Brisbane, Adelaide, probably around that 15% increase in annual terms. Sydney, obviously the biggest market, is slowing. Probably annual growth down to about 4 or 5% from double-digit rates 6 months ago. And the other cities, including big old Melbourne, but also Darwin, Canberra, Hobart, all flat to slightly lower. The prices there are starting to weaken. So you've got this huge divergence from Perth to, say, Melbourne, a 25 percentage point difference in the growth rate. But look, at this stage, there seems to be just the early signs that housing, even in those boom cities, is just starting to taper off a little bit.
Stephen, enjoy your week.
Will do. Thanks, John.
That was economist Stephen Koukoulas, better known as The Kook. You can find him at thekook.com and follow him on X using the handle The Kook. I'm Sean Aylmer, and this is Fear and Greed, the week ahead.